Considering how you clicked on this video, you're probably into technology and computers. And if you are, then chances are you know about the concept of bricking a device. So, how does that even work? What does it mean to brick a device? What causes it, and is it really irreversible? Let's find out. To give an example of what a bricked device is, have you ever wondered what would happen if you interrupt an update to your computer by shutting it down? Well, there is a chance that the computer may not turn on again. That's because the update it tried to install is incomplete and is probably missing important system files required to boot into its OS. In this case, the computer is considered bricked. Of course, this is only one of many causes. Many hobbyists like to customize and modify their systems, and sometimes that goes wrong. They might delete the wrong file or install an incompatible mod, and boom, their device doesn't turn on anymore. Now, you're probably wondering, this should be fixable, right? After all, it's just the software that was affected. The hardware is still fine. Well, that's what I thought too. But apparently that's not the case, which is what prompted me to make this video in the first place. There are two types of bricks, a soft brick and a hard brick. A soft brick device usually turns on and displays a warning or error message telling the user about the issue preventing it from booting into the OS. Or it may get stuck in a boot loop, where the device displays the boot screen over and over again when turned on. This can be easily fixed by resetting your device, reinstalling the OS, or flashing new software onto it. Because the software and firmware required to do that is still functional and present on the device. A good example of this is the infamous Apple iCloud lock, where unless you enter the device's iCloud account details, it's about as good as useless. Or the issue where many iPhones would get stuck in a boot loop if their earpiece speaker was damaged or unplugged. The iPhone 12 specifically was notorious for this issue. For another example, have you ever turned on your Windows computer and was greeted by this screen? This can also be considered a soft brick, because the computer cannot boot into its OS, but it can still be fixed by reinstalling it. A hard brick, on the other hand, is way more destructive and sometimes actually irreversible. That's because the damage usually has something to do with the device's firmware. In simple terms, firmware is software that's embedded into a computer's motherboard and is what allows the main OS to communicate with the rest of the computer's hardware. Firmware is stored separately from the device's main storage, most commonly in read-only memory, meaning that the firmware cannot be modified by the user, at least not without tools designed by the board's manufacturer, which they tend to keep to themselves. This is why BIOS or firmware updates are considered dangerous, because any hiccup, any sort of interruption to the update process will render the motherboard unusable. This can be fixed, but it's way more complicated, as it usually involves physically replacing the firmware chip with one that has healthy firmware from another board. Or you can just get a new motherboard and swap all the hardware to it. But in the case of SoCs on mobile phones, it's not that simple, because everything is soldered onto the motherboard. So you can't just replace the motherboard and swap the rest of the hardware to it. What some professionals do in this case is get an identical, healthy motherboard from a donor phone and swap the SoC from the damaged one to it. This is way easier than locating the firmware chip using trial and error and risking further damage. Some firmware can be replaced through a process known as flashing, which is especially common with Android devices. Unfortunately, many Android device manufacturers have now made it so you cannot unlock the device's bootloader in order to flash it. Bricking is also very common among IoT or Internet of Things devices. These are devices that rely heavily on internet and cloud services to run. Take for example the PS Portal or the Spotify car thing or any smart home product ever. They all require an internet connection so that they can connect to online servers to function. So when the time inevitably comes for companies to discontinue these products and shut down their servers, they become useless. E-waste. These devices are usually more than capable of running functional systems locally, without the need to connect to an online server. But the companies that make them make sure to restrict them to the pre-installed software and even have the audacity to prevent users from flashing new software onto them. Imagine paying up to thousands of dollars on a smart cloud-based product just for it to stop working 5 years, 3 years, maybe even 1 year later. There's nothing wrong with it, it's not broken, it's just that the greedy company that made it simply decided to pull the plug on it. Sure, they do refund these devices, but not always. And even then, you're still facing the inconvenience of having to replace a device that you might have depended on for something. And the user who paid their own money for it has to just suck it up while these huge conglomerates get little to no punishment for their literal crimes. Not everyone has the expertise to repurpose these products, so most people just throw them away and buy new ones. And that should be the end of today's video. If you spotted any mistakes, feel free to correct them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.